Hi folks, Johnny Stivers here for Stivers Decatur Subaru. Come check out the all-new, completely redesigned 2018 Subaru Crosstrek. A new platform, a great redesigned interior, and an amazing infotainment center. Stivers Decatur Subaru, where price sells cars.
This is the place where NFL legends live on and share their stories. This is the place for our Spotlight on the Positive segment, sharing what's good in the world of sports. This is also the place for the NFL Alumni Association and the Gridiron Greats. This place I speak of, Thursday Night Tailgate. Let's say hello to your hosts, Chris Mascaro and Bob Lazzari. Guys, take it away.
Hey, good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight as we kick off our 7th year of Thursday Night Tailgate, your home for interviews and insights from some of the greatest players in the history of the NFL. Chris Mascaro and Bob Lazzari, we're here tonight, and we've got a great group of guests that we're looking forward to sharing with you over the next couple of hours. First up with us tonight, we're going to get a return visit from former Redskins Pro Bowl quarterback Gus Frerotte. Gus joined us about 6 weeks ago and was so great. We wanted to get him back on the show as quickly as we could, so we look forward to catching up with Gus here in just a few minutes. Following Gus, former Patriots Pro Bowl running back Tony Collins. He'll be back with us to go through our 5-star picks of the week. Then we're going to cross way over into a different sport, the sport of mountain climbing, to talk to Alaska Sports Hall of Famer Vern Tejas. Vern has the record for the fastest person to ascend up the 7 highest mountain summits, the highest points on each one of the 7 continents. And he did it, oh, by the way, folks, at a record pace at the age of 57. So some great stories on tap from Vern. He'll join us about 45 minutes from now. Following him, we'll get a return visit from former Steelers, Seahawks, and Patriots Pro Bowl running back Chad Brown. Maybe Chad can help me understand why the Steelers defense can't handle the stretch play anymore. I think the Bears ran that thing 42 times on them last Sunday, and they couldn't stop it once. So hopefully Chad can help me out and give us a little insight to what's going on with my Steelers defense. And then we're going to round out tonight's show with a return visit from former Houston Oilers, Lions, and Ravens Pro Bowl punter Greg Montgomery. And Greg's doing some great things, so we look forward to catching up with Greg. So, folks, we've got a great show in store for you tonight. Thank you for taking the journey with Bob and I over the next couple of hours, and we'll get things started by bringing in my co-host, Mr. Bob Lazzari. Bob, how are you tonight, my friend?
Hi, Chris. Good evening. How are you?
I'm fantastic. I tell you, still reeling in the smiles from last week's 6th anniversary special and our 4th annual Hall of Fame induction. And folks, if you missed last week's show, when we inducted Bo Bach, E.J. Jr., Musa Muhammad, Richmond Webb, Kerry Glenn, and Jeff Reed into our guest Hall of Fame, you can go check out the show on our website, ThursdayNightTailgate.com, or over on our page on our good friends over at Podbean. You can find it online at ThursdayNightTailgate.podbean.com. You can stream or download it for free there. It was a wonderful night. We had a lot of fun, and we hope you'll check it out. But Bob, still a lot of memories, a lot of smiles from that show, and a lot of great guests, and fortunate enough to have our 4th annual Hall of Fame inductions, and now we're up to 26 great guys.
And those guys were all so thankful, Chris. And the thing is, and the real thing is, that you and I are the thankful ones, because not only have these guys been terrific interviews, they've become incredible friends, and you and I are very fortunate to have these guys both as guests and friends.
Yeah, I agree with that statement 100%. And speaking of guys coming back and being on the show, you've got a great guest coming up this Monday night on the TV side with Tony D'Angelo on your show Monday Night Sports Talk.
Yeah, Chris, former Tampa Bay center Randy Grimes, who you and I talked to about a month ago, was a terrific guest. Again, a lot of these guys are very, very grateful to get the props that we send them, and they have a lot of fun coming on these shows. So they're going to join us on the TV side this coming Monday. As you remember, Randy had some great stories. Chris did not have a good life outside of football and seems to have cleaned himself up, but kind of a great story, and I look forward to speaking to him again.
Yeah, and we want to get him back on this side as well. But yeah, Randy had a really great career, and guys talking an awful lot about him. The guys that played alongside him with the Bucks and then against him as well. But yeah, struggled in life after football. So a lot of great stories and lessons from the things that Randy went through. So I look forward to checking out the show again. Monday Night Sports Talk, and tell them, Bob, where they can find it on YouTube and online.
Yeah, MondayNightSports.net, and on YouTube, one word, Monday Night Sports 14. Pretty soon, Chris, we'll have the Reuben Davis interview. He was another one of our former guests here. He joined us a few weeks ago, too, and we'll get that one up soon also.
There you go. And folks, as you know, Thursday Night Tailgate, we are brought to you every week by the great folks over at Kaiven Foods, the Louisville Slugger Museum and Factory, the Salt Creek Golf Retreat up in beautiful Nashville, Indiana, our good friends over at Tops, and our partners at the NFL Alumni Association and Mike Ditka's organization, the Gridiron Greats, who we love very much. Check them out online at gridirongreats.org. So thanks to all of those folks for their contributions and being a part of the show. We wouldn't be here without them.
It's time for another edition of Bob's Take. So, Bob, tell us, what's on your mind tonight?
Yeah, that's right, Joe. Okay, let's get into this week's edition of Bob's Take. And, Bob, this week I want to start off by getting your thoughts on a really disturbing story that I read on ESPN.com earlier this week involving Seattle Seahawks running back Eddie Lacy. And Eddie's a guy who has struggled with his weight on and off, over the years, but he dropped 20 pounds over the off season to try to come into camp in better shape. He's got a weight clause in his contract, and he made that number. He certainly struggled, so far this season. He was actually inactive in week 2 and didn't get a carry last week. But, the Seahawks offensive line is a mess. The team is averaging under 97 yards per game rushing, and they still don't have a rushing touchdown yet this season. And yet, Eddie and his weight are being attacked on social media. People are trolling him about it, making comments, things like, making fun of his, his desire, his enjoyment of Chinese food. He'd made a tweet about that 5 years ago. Yet people are still giving him a hard time on social media about that. So, Bob, the personal weight attacks on social media are just out of control for Eddie. What's your take on the ridicule and the blame and just really the trolling that's going on these days, the negative trolling going on these days on social media?
First thing that came to mind, Chris, was it's just the whole social media thing. This could not happen 20 years ago. You had things like this going on, but now it's just magnified because there's so many people out there. And on to the negative stuff, like you and I, we talk about all the time, which we can't deal with. People, it seems that they wallow in it a lot, Chris. And a lot of these people that do this kind of stuff, Chris, they're not sports fans. They're just looking to bring people down in any way. In a way, it's glorified bullying over the internet. When they can't face somebody face to face. But you get the idea, if you read anything about this, that the guy it's really taken his toll on him. It's not something that he could have just scraped off and moved on from. It's something that he still fights on a day-to-day basis. But to have to hear about it and thrown in his face, Chris, whether he does well or not, nobody was saying anything about it when he was rushing for 1,200 yards in Green Bay. But any little problem he'd have, they always come back to this. Regardless of the rigors that are involved in an NFL season, it all comes back to food and weight with Eddie Lacy. And I read the article, and it'll bring a tear to your eye, Chris, if anybody out there has ever been bullied or smeared in some way. This is the height of it as far as I've seen in NFL in a long time, that they could come off on this guy who actually, as you know, Chris, you read the story, had a lot of trouble with Katrina back in the day. His family grew up very poor, and his mother was forced to make them the homemade, quote unquote cheap meals because that's all they could afford. And again, an incredible story. And I just, it actually gets me a little sick reading about it, Chris, but that is social media of 2017.
Yeah, it does make you sick, Bob. You talk about being bullied, it's cyberbullying, if you will, and we've talked a lot about, that topic on this show. And just, one of the things that does, sort of break your heart about when you read the story is, Eddie's, sort of plea, like, what do you get out of it, right? Like the trolls out there, people that, want to, talk the negative, that want to bully him about it, want to pester him about it, want to just, perpetuate those things. Right? It is that question. It's something that you and I don't understand. And he makes such a great point. What do you get out of that? Right? What good does that do anybody to go out on Twitter or social media and hammer somebody, about their weight or about whatever it is? I mean, it's sad to me, Bob, that that's sort of the society that we live in now, that, we have so many people out there that want to spread the negative, that want to kick somebody when they're down, and then, then make fun of them and bully them, to your point about, being anonymous, right? Hiding behind, whether it's a fake Twitter account or a fake name or whatever, that they can do that. And, I hate that goes on, and I really hate to see Eddie, a guy who had a great career in college at Alabama, got off to, a great start in the NFL, but a guy who has, battled his weight, on and off throughout the course of his life, and a guy that worked hard to drop some weight and come in. Like I say, he has got a weight clause in his contract, and he came in on the number. But yet still folks want to give him a hard time over social media. It's just not right. And I hate to think about it, and I hate it for Eddie. And that's just something that hopefully we can get our arms around on social media, because it just is ridiculous. Bob, moving on to a more positive note, I want to get your thoughts on the Kansas City Chiefs so far this season. 3-0 now, Bob. And that big win in Week 1 against the Patriots makes it so, again, way too early in the season, right? But, at this point, right, the way to, the Super Bowl in the AFC is going to go through Kansas City. Now, they're the number one rushing offense, thanks to Kareem Hunt. Their defense is, sixth in points allowed. So, Bob, your take on the Chiefs, and what do you think, or do you think they can remain the favorites in the AFC over the course of the rest of the season?
It's a good team, Chris. It's a good team. They proved that Week 1. But again, it's so early in the season, and this is a war of attrition this entire season. It's who's standing at the end and who is semi-healthy. And again, this is the Chiefs also, Chris. We've been through this before with them. The thing with this team, Chris, their offense is very powerful, and Alex Smith is not going to have to do that much. He can be that game, quote unquote, we hate the term, game manager, and succeed with this team. You got guys like Hill and Kelsey and Kareem Hunt, Chris. The 400 yards he has rushing, I think I read today, that's more than 26 NFL teams combined. So these are crazy numbers, but he's got some weapons there. Their defense, Chris, I'm not going to go crazy on their defense. It's not a great defense, and that's where you normally, as you know, as the season goes on, you win games with that defense. An injury here or two on offense, Chris, then you have to rely more on your defense. Again, this is a team, I think they're going to end up with a decent record. I don't think they'll have a better record than New England, like people are saying, but I think they're a playoff team. And again, when it's Week 13 and 14, Chris, and we're still talking positive about this team, then we really can sink our teeth into them.
Yeah, agreed. You're right, Bob. We have seen this from the Chiefs and some other teams in the past get off to a hot start. And you remember a couple of years ago, we saw the Vikings start out 5-0 and didn't make the playoffs. We saw the Falcons start out 5-0, didn't make the playoffs. Not that I'm suggesting that Kansas City could fold the tents like that and not make the playoffs. But to your point, it's way too early in the season to be thinking along these lines. A long, long way to go. But so far, and Bob, I've said it a bunch of times, and I'll say it again when we get to our 5-star picks of the week with Tony. But if you can run the ball and run the ball well, to your point about Kareem, the guy is unbelievable. I think I've got the notes here, and we'll get to it later. But I think it's 8.4 yards a carry. He's averaging so far this year. He's got 5 rushes for 20-plus yards so far. That's unbelievable stuff. But that guy is, having a great year so far. And then Alex Smith, no interceptions so far, 7 touchdowns. So, you run the ball well and you play defense well, you're going to win a lot of games. And so far, Kansas City is looking very good in those categories. Bob, one more before we move on, and I want to get your thoughts on the Jets winning for losing or losing for winning, if you will. So the Jets shut out the Dolphins last Sunday, and the notion was, right, we've heard about it even before the season started, before during OTAs, before training camp, that the Jets were tanking the year, right? They were tanking the year to get the number one pick. They had done a whole roster purge, and then they mess up and beat the Jags at home, right? If they go, or I should say, beat the Jags at home this week, they could find themselves 2-2. So you look at where they're at right now. Again, way too early. But Browns, Bengals, Chargers, Giants, 49ers, all 0-3, right? If the Jets were to get themselves to 2-2, right? They could find themselves, who knows, right? Picking 6th, 7th, 10th, somewhere in that area. So that whole roster purge, everything they were trying to build for to get to the draft of next year would be out the door. So, Bob, your take on the Jets losing for winning.
The Jets, Chris, all these people that were before the season started, they were saying, are the Jets, especially up here in the New England, New York area, they were saying, are the Jets going to win again? And I think we'd be foolish to say they're going to go 0-16. I mean, I was under the impression that they were going to go 3-13, 4-12 at the best. Now, the fact that they've won a game, Chris, I mean, they figure you'd have to win a game sometime early in the season. I still think they're going to be on a pace for 3 or 4 wins because I don't think they'll beat Jacksonville this week. They do have Cleveland in October. Chris, after that, their schedule becomes murderous. They have to play Miami again at Miami. They're probably not going to win. And then you have teams like New England, Atlanta, Tampa Bay, Carolina, Kansas City, Denver, New Orleans. I can go on, and New England to top it off at the end. So, again, they're still probably a 3-4 win team, Chris. That may not be the worst record in football. I think these people overreacted when they thought the team was going to go 0-16. But as far as a lot of their fans thinking that they would go there and probably want them to get a good draft pick, they may be a little bit disappointed because I think this is a 3 or 4 win team, and that might not be the worst record in football this year.
All right, folks, there you have it. That is Bob's take for this week. And, folks, as you know, TNT, we are sponsored by Kyvan Foods, and NFL star Reggie Kelly brings the authentic flavor of traditional Southern cooking to market with his Kyvan Foods products. Made with the finest ingredients, Kyvan Foods invite you to appreciate the goodness of the exceptional flavors of their salsas, their sauces, their apple butter, and other fine products as well. Make Kyvan items a part of your tailgating spread, either at the game or at home gating with your family and friends. The taste is unbelievable, folks. It is their products are available through Walmart.com, at select Kroger stores, or online through Amazon or Kyvan's website itself at Kyvan82.com. And Kyvan is spelled Kyvan. Baseball season, right? We're on the verge of the postseason, and if you love the game, you've got to go check out the Louisville Slugger Museum and Factory. They were inducted into the TripAdvisor Certificate of Excellence Hall of Fame. The museum, folks, it is a very cool experience for everybody in the family because you get to go in there and walk the live production line and see some of the 1.8 million bats that they make every year, and they've been doing it now for 132 years. You hear me bragging about the Bat Vault every week here on Thursday Night Tailgate because you get to walk in there and hold game-used bats from guys like Hank Aaron, Ted Williams, my hero growing up, Willie Stargell. To find out more information about the museum and to book your visit, go to sluggermuseum.com. We're also proud to be sponsored by our good friend and TNT Hall of Famer Randy Manier and the great folks up at the Salt Creek Golf Retreat in Nashville, Indiana, which, oh, by the way, was voted one of the top 20 small towns in the country by Smithsonian Magazine. Let's hear a word from our announcer, Joe Lajanusa, about what a fantastic place it really is.
If you're looking for a great place for your annual golf outing, a weekend golf getaway, or just a round of golf with your buddies, then Salt Creek Golf Retreat is just what you're looking for. Centrally located in Nashville, Indiana, just south of Indianapolis and west of Cincinnati. This challenging but fair 18-hole golf course appeals to all skill levels, and its scenic views of rolling hills and tree-lined fairways are sure to make golfing memories for years to come. Owned and operated by former Purdue and New York Giant fullback Randy Manier, Salt Creek Golf Retreat offers stay-and-play packages that include golf and a fully furnished 1- or 2-bedroom condo. After your rounds, be sure to stop by the 19th Hole Sports Bar and Restaurant for great food, fun, and drinks. Randy and his staff will treat you like family. For more information, log on to saltcreekgolf.com. That's saltcreekgolf.com. Or give them a call at 812-558-5944. Salt Creek Golf Retreat. Start making your golfing memories today.
Yeah, we can't say enough great things about the golf course, the condos, and, of course, Randy's staff as well. Go online to saltcreekgolf.com to see for yourself how great a place it is. All right, now back with us on the Kyvan Foods guest line is former Pro Bowl quarterback Gus Frerotte. Let me remind you about Gus's background. He's from Kittanning, Pennsylvania, which is 44 miles northeast of my hometown of Pittsburgh along the Allegheny River. In high school, he lettered in football, baseball, and basketball. He played his college ball at Tulsa, where he remained sixth in all-time passing yards and ninth in touchdown passes. His nearly 3,000 yards passing his senior season were the most by a Tulsa quarterback in nearly 3 decades. He was a seventh-round draft pick in 1994 by the Washington Redskins, played in the NFL from 94 to 2008 for the Redskins, Lions, Broncos, Bengals, Vikings, Dolphins, and Rams. Over the course of his NFL career, he threw for just over 21,000 yards and 114 touchdowns. He was named to the Pro Bowl in 1996 when he threw for nearly 3,500 yards under Norv Turner and led the Redskins to their first winning season in the post-Joe Gibbs era. And we're glad to have Gus back with us tonight here on Thursday Night Tailgate. Hey, Gus, Chris and Bob here. Thanks for coming back on the show.
Welcome back.
Hey, thank you for having me back on. I appreciate it.
So, Gus, I wanted to start our time with you tonight by, getting your memories from the first time you started in the NFL. Came during, I believe, week 8 of your rookie season in Indianapolis. And we hear so much about the speed of the game, how much faster it is when you go from college to the NFL. When you got out there, was it true? Were things moving much faster than what you saw in college, and were you ready for it?
Well, it wasn't like it was the first game of the year. I did have a lot of prep time because of training camp, starting games in the preseason, getting a lot of practice time against our guys. He Schuler held out that year, so it gave me a lot of extra time that I think that if I would have not had that time and had to go in and play that game, I don't think the results would have been the same. But I did have prep time. In the game, I will say this, the game is much, much faster than anybody can anticipate. I don't think it's because you got to throw the ball harder, you got to do these things better. It's just that everybody is better. There's not just 3 guys on the other side of the ball that are tremendous. There are 11 guys on the other side of the ball that are tremendous. And so your left tackle has to work harder, your right tackle has to work harder. Everybody's putting in their time, and things happen at a much higher speed, faster rate, and you have to prepare. And your decision-making and your reaction time has to be on its game, because if it's not and you're late with a throw, the defense is so good they're going to be able to knock the ball down or pick it off.
And, and that's the opposite side of that. Oh, I'm sorry. Finish your thought.
No, I just said that all that together just speeds the game up so much for you. And, for me, being a 7th rounder and saying I have to prove myself every play, every series, every game, that puts more pressure on you. So it was just it was something that was expedited, but it's the same game that you've played since you were little. So there is a part of it that speeds up. There's a part of it that stays the same because you've played it. You've kind of done it your whole life.
So the other side, to that coin would be, we hear the other thing cliche you hear a lot about is, the game finally slows down or gets slower. Is that also not so much the case, or is it, at some point does the game sort of slow down for you, at least mentally, so that you're able to, execute the plays and make the throws and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I would say that's true too, because you get smarter, you get wiser, you learn how to play the game. You learn the nuances. It's like anything. I tell people all the time, it's like if the first time I worked in high school, I worked for a gentleman, and we built decks and we did roofing. And so the first time I ever climbed a ladder with a 50-pound pack of shingles on my shoulder, I was scared to death, and I never thought I was going to make it onto that roof. And the guy kept telling me it gets easier. And I'm like, yeah, right. So by the end of that summer, I'm carrying 2 packs of shingles up onto the roof and just walking like it's just I'm on the ground, because it's something that you get used to. You understand it, and you learn that hey, I can handle these things, and it does slow down for you a little bit. But in the same sense that's why you have to work so hard and prepare, because you never want to stay. Well, I'm trying to think of the word where you're just complacent. You have to work your butt off, work your tail off, because these people are so good that you're playing against that they're going to attack the ball. They're going to come at you in different ways. And so you always have to be prepared. The time that you get complacent, it's the time that you're not going to be playing.
And Gus, you faced off against Deion Sanders a few times when you were with the Redskins and he was in Dallas. Were there special game plans around him? Did you guys ever game plan to stay away from him, or that not to go to that side of the field as often as you might, or was that a myth?
No, I think that's somewhat true. I think Deion was so good. Like when you would play Dallas, he was going to take half of the field away, as they used to say. But that was just when you had one receiver over there, and they knew that he was going to lock that down. Now I remember playing against Dallas when Deion was there, and I threw a couple kid that was unknown. I can't remember Chris's last name, but he was my receiver out there, and we threw some fade stops that really weren't being thrown in the NFL yet, and Coach Turner put those in, and I completed 2 against Deion in a row, and I can remember him being so upset. He was angry. He said, "Nobody does that against me," and there's myself and this receiver, Chris, that nobody knows, and then we're completing passes against Deion, so it was quite fun. He was really, really good. And you didn't want to go at him all the time, but when you were able to complete passes against them, you felt pretty good about yourself.
Bob, questions for Gus?
Great to speak with you again, Gus. Every time I speak with somebody who grew up in Pennsylvania, I love to talk about the football experience there in your younger days, Gus. As far as we hear hotbeds of American football down in Texas and Florida, obviously at the high school level. But Pennsylvania, it's huge. I went to graduate school, Gus, at the University of New Haven, Division II school, and often they had played the Pennsylvania schools. And you know them well, Gus, the Shippensburgs, the Edinburghs, the Indianas, Slippery Rock. Very, very good football schools at that level, Gus. I'm sure you had a lot of teammates in high school and a lot of friends that went to these schools. Talk about that experience, the high school experience in Pennsylvania and those schools in Pennsylvania. It's a hotbed.
I agree with that. When I grew up, it was very much a hotbed, and the teams that were good back then aren't necessarily the teams that are good now. Things change, and they've switched the classes around. There used to only be 4, now there's 6. So a lot of those things have changed. But it is a hotbed. When I grew up, there were a lot of people that were going on to play major college football. Kids were tough from this area. I tell the story all the time about my dad when I was playing football in 8th grade. I came home from one of the first practices, and I said, "Dad, my foot is killing me. I don't know what's going on." He said, "You'll be fine. Tie your shoe tighter." At the end of the season, I go and say, "Mom, my foot's still killing me. Let's go to the emergency room." So we go. The doctor says, "How long it's been like this? You got a broken foot." I said, "Well, pretty much the whole season." And that was my dad. He was a tough guy. He was one of 13 kids, and worked in the factory. So, I think that Sylvania kids were just tough, and football players, and especially quarterbacks, you just didn't leave the field. You got injured, you kept playing, and you fought through pain, and you played the game as tough as anybody did in the country. And for me, when I played in high school, my coach, Harry Beckwith, he coached for 42 years. He's in the Pennsylvania Hall of Fame. He was old school. He came from a stock of back in the day where, things were done a certain way. I can remember I was in 11th grade. I missed I didn't miss it, but I was late for a practice because my mom took me to the dentist, and he made me bear crawl about 500 yards before I went out for practice because I was late. That's just how things were done back then, and you just did them, and nobody complained. No parents were there watching, and that's how everything happened. And I think it just made for a tougher player, and especially in Western Pennsylvania. I mean, we ran the wing tee. I probably threw the ball 40 times my whole high school career, and it was just tough. We're going to beat them up. We're going to go out, and this is what we do, and we're going to do it play after play after play.
And Gus, talk to me about the Tulsa experience. That was a team that was ranked in 1991. As the next few years, they weren't as good, but talk to me about Coach Rader and how that prepared you for the NFL.
Yeah, I love Coach Rader. One of the reasons I went to Tulsa, well, the main reason was because of Coach Rader and then our other coach, Mark Thomas, who recruited me. But Coach Rader came to visit me twice in Pennsylvania, coming from Oklahoma. That meant a lot to me. Coach Rader was forward-thinking. We kind of ran spread offense, shotgun, threw the ball a lot. So coming from a wing tee where I was under center every play to going to shotgun every play, I had to learn that. But that was a big difference for me. And the experience at Tulsa was great. I learned a lot of football. Coach Rader was a tremendous teacher of the game. He and I spent many, many hours watching film. Then they changed the rules that people in college can only spend so many hours, doing football things. And so we still snuck some film in there every now and then, and just learned a lot about the game. Learned a lot about playing quarterback, dropping back in the pocket, being strong in the pocket, those types of things. Not that I didn't learn those in high school, but it was just totally different. And I think that really promoted me to be a good professional quarterback.
Gus, a couple more before we let you go. And in the late '90s, early 2000s, you were sort of moving around from a couple of different teams, and the Steelers were sort of cycling through a couple of different quarterbacks. And there's a guy from Pittsburgh, and I remember back in the day playing Madden, and I moved you over to be the Steelers quarterback for the team at that point. Did you ever have any conversations with the Steelers? Was there ever a potential that you were going to play there?
Well, I tried 3 times, just to let you know. I always wanted to play for the Steelers. I mean, Terry Bradshaw was my idol growing up. I always wore his number. That's why I had the number 12. And so when I was a rookie, I came from college after my senior year, football year, and then in the spring of my senior year, I worked for the Pittsburgh Pirates, and I interned for Dr. Warren Sipp and in Three Rivers. And so I was always trying to Steelers and finally got to get a workout with them, and didn't really have a receiver. I went back to their old practice field, which was on the side of the building. It was kind of in a 10-foot caged area, and did a workout for them. Didn't pan out my rookie year. Came back another year. Hey, I thought I could come back, and it was between myself and Kent Graham. They took Kent Graham that year, and then another year I tried to come back again, and that's when Charlie Batch came back to the Steelers, and I'm trying to remember where I went after that. But yeah, I always tried to come back and play for the Steelers, and really wanted to. Just never happened for me. So there's a little chip on my shoulder about not being able to play for the Steelers, being a hometown boy, but I'm pretty satisfied with my career.
Gus, want to get your thoughts on what's going on around the league now. The Redskins are off to a 2-1 start. They're tied right now with the Eagles and the Cowboys. Wanted to get your assessment of the Redskins so far and what you expect from them this season. Yeah,
it's been a little spotty. Like when you watch them, it's not a full solid game every game, but they have the playmakers. I think Kirk Cousins is a very good quarterback. I think he does the things that you have to do as a quarterback to win. And, if his guys can stay healthy around them, they're going to put it together. Their defense always comes through and is making some plays for them. They're in a tough division, with the Cowboys. The Cowboys are pretty stacked. As you guys may remember from our last call, I coached Ezekiel Elliott in high school, so I know some of those guys, and I played for a lot of those coaches who are coaching at the Cowboys. So I know their system, and it's funny to watch all these people that are still in the NFL after you leave it, and teams that you've played for. But obviously the Redskins drafted me, and I still pull for them very heavily, and I'm pretty excited when they do win.
And Gus, you're now the VP of Brain Performance Initiatives for a company called RC21X. Remind our listeners about your company, about the brain game that you guys have developed.
So what we've developed is an app that takes 6 minutes to play. Anyone can play it from the ages of 6 to 106. You can go to www.mybrain365.com and you can find out about our tool. I wish that all players, no matter how old they are, I want all athletes, boys and girls, to be on this tool because it gives you a self-assessment tool that you can put in your pocket. Parents can see their kids' brain performance. We wanted to create a preventative tool that gives kids their brain performance and where they are in life before anything happens to them. And if they are doing something correct in life, we really wanted to give them something that shows that they're doing something correct. So with our tool, all these kids and what's going on in the NFL now, I would just love NFL players to say, hey, we want these kids to be healthy and safe and make better choices in their life. And with our tool and the brain performance that we established with this, kids can go on here, hopefully make better decisions in life because of the games that we have on there. Take 6 minutes to play. There's 7 games. And it monitors your neurocognitive and your neuromotor skills, your short-term memory, your reaction time, and your vestibular balance. So it's a wonderful tool. I really want everybody and parents, if anybody is listening, their kids should be on it. Their grandkids should be on it. If you're a concerned parent or if you're a caregiver, those people you're taking care of it should be on it. And it's a wonderful tool. And it's really going to help a lot of people. And I really appreciate you guys letting me talk about it because I can't wait to see the day where our tool really helps and saves people's lives.
Wow. It sounds fantastic, Gus, and kudos to you guys for putting it out there. And we will certainly continue to spread the word about it. And we can't thank you enough for taking time out of your night to come back on the show. We hope you'll come back again soon. So many things Bob and I would love to get your thoughts and insights on and hear more of your stories from the time you were in the league. But can't thank you enough for being here again tonight.
No, I appreciate you guys having me on and letting me talk about our wonderful tool at mybrain365.com. And anytime you want me on, I'm more than happy to come on with you guys. You guys are great.
Thank you for that, Gus. Let our listeners know how they can follow you on social media as well, Gus.
Yeah, definitely. You can go to my site. If you just go to www.mybrain365.com, I'm on there. They can follow me on Twitter and Facebook on that site. And also you can go to my own pages at Gus Frerotte on either one. So you can follow me on all those. And really, if you have any questions about the tool, anybody wants to find out more, don't hesitate to get in touch with me. And you can catch me on those sites, and I really appreciate you guys letting me talk about it.
There you go. Take care, Gus. All the best to you and your family. We look forward to catching up again real soon.
Great. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Gus. That is former Pro Bowl quarterback Gus Frerotte. Some great stuff, Bob. And again, one more time, the site, it's mybrain365.com. And, I took a look at it, and I'm looking forward to, using it some more and really getting a baseline for myself. But it's a great tool, and Gus is not only a great guy, but he was a really great player, too, as well, Bob.
Yeah, doing great work now, Chris. And, again, I just love talking to those old Pennsylvania guys because the stories they have and the blue-collar beginnings that they came from always come across clearly on the show. And love the guy. Great guest.
Yeah, absolutely he is. All right, we've got our next guest, Tony Collins, and our 5-star picks of the week hanging on the line. We'll get to Tony in just a moment after this quick station ID.
You're listening to Thursday Night Tailgate with Chris Mascaro and Bob Lazari, where NFL legends live on. Back to you, boys.
Him, he's alive.
And now back with us on the Kaiven Foods guest line to help us go through our 5-star picks of the week is former Patriots Pro Bowl running back Tony Collins. Hey, Tony, how have you been?
Hey, Tony.
Doing fantastic. How you doing, Chris and Bob?
Oh,
Great.
Really good. Thank you, Tony. We missed you last week as we were inducting our 2017 class of our Hall of Fame class into our like I said, into our guest Hall of Fame. It was a great show, a lot of great guys, 6 more guys joining you in our hall, Tony. So we missed you last week, but glad to catch up with you again this week.
Fantastic.
So, Bob, Tony, if we go back a couple of weeks, the last time Tony was on the show and we did our 5-star picks, and none of us is breaking out from the pack. If you remember, week 1 I was 3-2, and you guys were both 2-3. Well, for week 2, Bob was 3-2, and Tony, you and I were both 2-3. So far for the season, Bob and I are level 500, 5-5. You're 4-6. So we've all got to pick it up, because hanging around 500 isn't doing any of us any good, isn't getting us getting any of us anywhere. So we got a lot of work to do for the rest of the season. So here we go with our 5-star picks for week 4. And Tony, our first game this week is going to be my 2-1 Steelers going to the 2-1 Ravens. The Steelers are a 3-point road favorite. The over/under is 42. So Tony, which one of these teams bounces back from a terrible week 3 loss?
Oh man, your Steelers disappointed me last week, man.
No kidding.
But it's been a crazy 3 weeks though, Gus. You never know. Some of these teams are playing well. Pittsburgh and Ravens, man, that's gonna be a tough one. I mean, I was kind of shocked last week when your Steelers that the Bears beat them, the Chicago Bears. Oh my God! So
yeah. Tell me all about it, Tom.
Man, and then the Ravens get their butts beat last week. I don't know if that's because they're out of the country or what, but golly, man. The Steelers are home or Ravens at home?
Ravens at home. Steelers at Baltimore.
At Baltimore. Yeah.
Oh, my goodness, man. I'm going to go with the Steelers, man. I just think they got too many weapons. I just don't understand how they play so badly last week. So I got to go with the Steelers. It's a crucial time right now. They don't want to lose 2 games in a row. So I'm taking Pittsburgh 24-21. Be a close game.
All right, Bob, what do you think?
I agree with Tony, Chris. Steelers they're definitely one of the elite teams in the league. I know they had bumps on the road already this year, but they're still. And Baltimore did not expect much from them this year. I'm surprised that they have a couple wins already, but I think Le'Veon Bell gets things going, Chris. Pittsburgh is not happy with the whole thing last week. I think they get it. They get the ship righted big time on the road. I'm going to pick Pittsburgh 28-20.
28-20. Oh, well, hopefully both of you guys are right. The offense continues. It's like they're still, continue to look like they're still going into OTAs or in training camp. They're like uninterested, uninspired, and it starts with poor play by Ben Roethlisberger. Misses a wide open Martavis Bryant on the first play of the game. So, and you talk about Le'Veon Bell. That guy's been rapping about how we need 17 to sign, meaning 17 million. He looks like he's not worth 17,000, let alone 17 million. And the Bears, I mean, they ran the stretch play, I think, 42 times last week against the Steelers defense, and they couldn't stop it. Jordan Howard had 138 yards. He averaged 6 yards a carry. Tariq Cohen had 78 yards. He averaged 6.5 yards per carry. But so I'm sure they're going to see a heck of a lot more than that. Now, the thing going in our favor is, Joe Flacco, who continues to steal money from the Ravens. He parlayed that hot playoff run a few years ago into a huge contract. 8 for 18 for 28 yards and 2 interceptions last week, guys. He's 31st in the league right now in quarterback rating and 32nd in passing yards. So the thing is, though, guys, the Steelers are 5-13 in their last 18 games on the road against losing teams, right? So if the Ravens were 1-2 or 0-3 instead of 2-1, I'd be picking the Ravens to win this game because for some reason the Steelers always play their worst against the worst teams. Mike Glennon, oh, by the way, guys, Bears starting quarterback, 6-15 as a starting quarterback. 2 of those 6 wins against the Steelers. He led a 2-14 Bucs team to a victory over the Steelers not long ago. But anyway, Ravens are 2-1, so my boys, I think, are going to figure this thing out. I think they win a close game like Tony talked about. I think it's 20-10. Our second game, fellas, 2-1 Panthers going to Tony's 2-1 Patriots. The Patriots are a 9-point home favorite, and the over-under is 49. Tony, your boys eked out a win last week over Deshaun Watson and the Texans, so they're looking anything but dominant right now, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. So can they hold off Cam Newton and the Panthers this week?
Too close last week. Yeah, you're right, man. We're hurting real bad on defense right now, but I just can't see Carolina going up to New England and beating New England at home. I said the same thing about Kansas City too, but I just think, offensively we're doing well. We're going to put up some points. I don't think the Panthers can hang with us as far as scoring, so we're going to score a lot of points. I don't think the Panthers will, so I got to go with my Patriots, of course. And I think this is going to be the blowout of the week, 38-7, New England.
Wow, the Tony Collins blowout special, 38-7 over the Texans. Holy cow, Bob! I don't know. What do you think?
I can't disagree with Tony as far as they're not going to be able to hang with them. Chris, Carolina's a team averaging 15 points a game. You're going up to New England, who's averaging 33. I don't think you have to look too much farther than that. New England is still mad that they lost a game, and they will be probably until the end of the season. But, I think they're going to go up there, take care of business. Even if their defense doesn't play well, they're still going to win a lot of games, outscoring opponents, and this might be something along those lines, but I'm still going to say give the Patriots 34 and give the other team 24. How's that?
All right. Well, I'm going to take the Patriots as well, but I think there's going to be a lot of points scored in this game. As I was saying, the Patriots defense has given up the most yards in the league so far, the most points in the league so far. They're 26th against the run, dead last against the pass. So, if you have anybody on the Panthers offense, oh, by the way, for fantasy football players, right, go out and start them because they're going to put a bunch of points. I like the Patriots. I think they'll get it done at home. I think it's going to be a high-scoring, close game. I like it 38-35 Patriots. Our third game this week, guys, is the 2-1 Titans going to the 1-2 Texans. The Titans are a 1.5-point road favorite, and the over/under is 43.5. So, Tony, who do you like here?
Yeah, I got to go with the Titans, man. I just. Deshaun, the rookie quarterback for Houston, I think he's going to be a great football player. I just don't think this year, unless he catches on a little bit more during the latter part of the year. But right now, he's struggling a little bit to put points on the board. But I still think that he's going to be a super quarterback. But the Titans, I think they just got too many weapons. I like their defense as well. So I'm going to go with Tennessee, 27-17.
All right. Bob, who are you going with?
I'm with Tony on this one, too. It's Houston. We always talk, Chris, about how good defensively they were, and Tennessee's actually given up less points than Houston, which that blows my mind. I didn't think anyone would think that Houston would score like Tennessee, but defensively, they're playing good. And Houston, like Tony said, Watson looking good, but I just think it's still too early yet. Mariota's starting to come into his own. So I'm going to say Tennessee goes in there and ekes out a win. I'm going to say Tennessee 24-20.
All right. And, guys, I don't know if you saw the story, but Deshaun Watson gave his first game check to 3 ladies working in their cafeteria who were all impacted by Hurricane Harvey. It's a great story. And, oh, by the way, expect to hear more about it next week in our Spotlight on the Positive segment. But, I wasn't big on Deshaun Watson as a fan before. I saw that story, but I sure am now. Did a nice job last week against Tony's Patriots, 22 of 33, 301 yards, 2 touchdowns, had a couple of picks. They also rushed for 125 yards as a team. Now, the Texans, to your point, Bob, are not the same defense that we saw a year ago. 25th in points allowed at a shade under 25, middle of the pack in yards allowed. That might spell a problem, if Tennessee wasn't worse. They're 27th in yards allowed and 26th in passing yards allowed. The key to beating the Titans is stopping the run. DeMarco Murray keeps rolling. He's averaging 5.3 yards a carry. To Bob, to your other point, Marcus Mariota doing pretty well. He's in the middle of the pack right now in passing yards. So, I think this is going to be a close game. The Texans are at home. I like the mojo being generated by Deshaun Watson. So I'm going to go the other way. I'm taking the Texans in a mild upset. I say they win this game 27-24. Our fourth game this week, guys, the 2-1 Raiders going to the 2-1 Broncos. The Broncos are a 3-point home favorite. The over-under here is 46. Tony, who do you like to come out on top on this one?
Oh, man, this is going to almost be like the old Raiders and the old Broncos. Both teams are playing playing good football, man. Both teams have great defenses as well. Broncos probably one of the best defenses in the league. But I just like Oakland. You know, Carr and the weapons that Carr has. I think they'll score more than the Denver Broncos will. It won't be a whole lot of scoring because of the defense. So we're going 2017 Oakland.
All right, Bob, what do you got?
This is the toughest game of the week, I think, guys, because these teams are just dead even in everything. If you look at the stats, win losses, points for, points again. They both lost last week. So this is, I'm just going to go with the home team just because they're home. Oakland going into the altitude. I'm going to just say Denver because they're home, and that's the only reason I'm picking them here. I'm going to say they win this game 28-24, a good game, but Denver comes out ahead.
All right. You know, when I looked at, this game, the Raiders looked very bad last week against the Redskins. Kirk Cousins throws for 365 and 3 touchdowns. Marshawn Lynch for the Raiders, you look at him, only 18 yards last week. Derek Carr only threw for 118 yards, had 2 picks. Last week, the Broncos were coming off, a blowout win over the Cowboys, so you'd think they'd come off on a high, yet they were flat in a 10-point loss to Buffalo. So neither team has any momentum. Oakland's offense that was supposed to be so high-powered, only 22nd in yards, 24th in passing yards, and that was supposed to be the strength of their offense. Marshawn Lynch only has 139 yards in the 3 games so far, only 1 touchdown. So the Raiders' offense, like my Steelers' offense, is completely underwhelming. Both defenses are giving up 21 a game, so that's what I'm going to stick with, guys. I'm going to take Denver because, just like you, Bob, just for the mere fact that they're the home team, I'm going to give them the edge. I say they win 22-20, average 21 points given up. I'm taking Denver. Our last game this week is the Monday night game, pitting the 2-1 Redskins going to the 3-0 Chiefs. The Chiefs are a 7-point home favorite. The over-under is 49. Tony, can the Redskins help out your Patriots by giving the Chiefs a loss?
This will be another good game, man. Redskins are playing good football. KC is definitely playing good football. It's a tough one. But I just like KC. I think KC is going to be one of those top tier teams this year, making it all the way to the playoffs and with a chance of going to the Super Bowl this year. Well, of course, they got to play the Patriots, so they won't make it. But anyway, I'm going with Kansas City. I'm just going to go with Kansas City. I like the rookie running back. I think Hunt's doing an excellent job. So we're going to go Kansas City. A high-scoring game, I think. So we'll go 37-34 Kansas City.
All right. Bob, what do you got?
I could see it being a pretty wild game, and I think just Kansas City is on a roll, guy. Only the Patriots have scored more points in the conference, and I just think they continue rolling. I think they're going to have a similar year to they've had in the past decade. They're going to probably get a good streak here and then kind of level off at the end, but. Yeah, I don't see them having too much of a problem here at home. I'm going to say they put up 34-26, Kansas City over Washington.
All right. And guys, like I always say, the ability to run the ball and play great defense, right, that wins you games. The Chiefs rookie, running back Kareem Hunt, as Bob and I were talking about at the top of the show, has been unbelievable so far this season. He leads the league in rushing, 401 yards. That's 113 yards more than the next closest guy. He's averaging 8.4 yards per carry, thanks to 5 runs of 20-plus yards or more. Their defense is 7th in points allowed, giving up 19 a game. They held Phillip Rivers last week to 237 yards passing, had 3 interceptions against him. And Alex Smith doing pretty well, 10th in the league in passing yards so far, 7 touchdowns, no interceptions. And those 7 touchdowns are second only to Brady. So there's so much to like about Kansas City right now, and particularly in this game. So I'm taking them to go 4-0. 27-20, Kansas City wins this game. Tony, before we let you go, remind our listeners about the great things you're doing to help kids go to college.
TonyCollinsFoundation.com, TonyCollinsSpeaks.com. Go to the websites. We're giving out scholarships for high school students to go off to college. Thank you, guys.
We look forward to catching up with you again next week.
All right, have a good one.
Take
care, Tony.
Bye-bye, Tony.
There's former Patriots Pro Bowl running back Tony Collins and our 5-star picks of the week. All right, now joining us on the Kyvan Foods guest line is Vern Tejas. Vern is from Portland, Oregon. He's an American mountain climber and a mountain guide. He is the current world record holder for the amount of time taken to reach the 7 summits of the 7 highest mountains on each of the 7 continents, including Mount Everest, where he planted a prism pole, Bob, at the summit. He was the first person to solo climb Mount McKinley, now known as Mount Denali, during the winter season. He climbed the 7 summits in 134 days. Set the record, oh, by the way, at the age of 57, folks. So it's an amazing thing that Vern has accomplished, and he's climbed those 7 mountains 10 times at least each. So what an amazing athlete, and he's in the Alaska Sports Hall of Fame. He's written a book about his experience. It's titled 7 Summits, Life in the Mountains, which is available on Amazon.com. And we're honored that he is with us tonight here on Thursday Night Tailgate. Hey, Vern, Chris, and Bob, thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, Vern.
Hey, guys. Hey, thanks for having me on.
Vern, how did it all start? I'm always curious. To climb mountains and to have that as an aspiration. When did that, bug first hit you?
Chris, I was in the Boy Scouts and got to go to Philmont Boy Scout Ranch in New Mexico. And on the ranch is actually one of the highest mountains in New Mexico, the 3rd highest, about 13,000 feet. I was 12 years old at the time, like most of my troop, and we actually got to climb it. And as we were climbing, I noticed that the troop masters and then some of the bigger guys were falling off the back of the pack. And as we got higher and higher on the mountain, I became more and more prominent. I was leading the charge up the mountain. I didn't realize that my training as a swimmer would come into such great effect at altitude. But by the time we got to the top, I was by myself, and I realized I was a natural. So it sort of set the hook at that point.
And Vern, like I said, you've also been a mountain guide and a guy who's had to go up and rescue people off the mountains. What are some of the precarious positions that people have gotten themselves into that you had to rescue them from?
I think the one that jumps to mind was the Korean climbers on Denali. They went up a ridge called the Cassine Ridge, a very strong, serious group, but a very dangerous ridge. They got almost to the top of the mountain when the leader was struck down with cerebral edema, which is an altitude sickness. They were no longer able to go forward. They had to stop, and a couple of them descended. And when they got to base camp, they alerted me to the fact that 2 of their members were up high on the mountain. At the same time, the National Park Service sent in a helicopter, and 4 of us went up to rescue them. Unfortunately, the other guys weren't quite as acclimatized, and I was able to get to the camp where the Koreans were and get them to the top of the mountain or to the top of the ridge, at which point one of the other rescuers caught up with me, and we brought down the incapacitated Korean leader all the way down to 17,000 feet, where he was able to fly off in a helicopter, evacuated to the medical facilities. It took about 24 hours for it to all take place, and I still think it's probably one of the more dramatic things I've been ever involved with.
And Vern, I read that at times you've taken an aluminum ladder attached to your backpack just in case you fall into a crevice. What's the most dangerous position you found yourself in? Whether it's, climbing a mountain or, whether I should say going up, coming down, what's the most precarious position you've had to, kind of thought, boy, one false move here and I could be in real trouble?
Well, the reason I took that ladder, Chris, is I wore it around my waist so that when I was soloing Denali in the winter, which I was the first person to do that in return, when I was up there, I would not fall in a crevasse. The first man to do it was Japanese, and they never saw him again. After he summited, he never got down. So I'm thinking he must have fallen in a crevasse. And so I took this ladder, wore it around my waist so that if I dropped into a crevasse, hopefully the ladder would bridge across the crevasse, and I would be able to save myself and crawl out on the ladder as it laid on the surface. Fortunately, there's only one time that I ended up opening a crevasse up, and I also had skis on, so the skis actually kept me from falling in. But psychologically, I could not have climbed the mountain in the wintertime by myself without knowing that I had at least a second line of defense that would keep me from dropping to my death.
Bob, questions for Vern?
It's great to speak with you, Vern. This is a fascinating subject. I used to run competitively, so at least I have an idea why some people do crazy things and how it's hard to explain to other people why you do it. But I know you know that feeling. But mountain climbing, to me, is just another, you take it to another level. And I'm just wondering, Vern, what do you consider when that first major accomplishment that you attained? Take me back to that and your immediate reaction afterward. Were you under the impression that I can't wait to do this again, or I'll never do this again?
Well, it set the hook at a very young age, but my goal when I came to Alaska as a young man, I saw the mountain in all of its glory, and it so mesmerized me. I knew right then and there that I had to climb it, or at least give it my best shot. It took me 5 years, Bob, before I learned enough of the skill set that is required when you're climbing something big like Denali. But after the 5 years, I was able to go up there and pit myself against it. First day, I wanted to go home. I got so sick with the altitude and sunburnt and just disappointed. I felt miserable, and I almost backed out at that point, but I said to myself, I need to give it one more shot. So I stayed on. I started feeling better, and ultimately got to the top of the mountain and also climbed the north summit as well, which is very rarely climbed, and felt like I'd really accomplished my goal and my dream for 5 years, which was to get on top of this most beautiful mountain that I'd ever seen. So I was very fortunate. Certainly someone was looking after me from above, but the feeling of being able to fulfill a dream is probably what keeps me going back for more.
And Vern, the sport of mountain climbing, say to a young aficionado that wants to get into it, is this something that can be taught to a youngster, or is it something that you kind of got to morph into as far as relations to you? Or talk to us about, is this something that people can gain an interest in by doing, or is it teachable?
I think it's both. Having the interest in getting involved with a school club or one of the different mountaineering groups in the community is a great way to learn. It's not too expensive. You can tap into the knowledge of the older people, the mentors of the community. And that's a really good place to start. That's what I did when I headed up to Alaska as a young boy. I was able to get involved with the Mountaineering Club of Alaska and learn from the people who had been doing it for years. I kind of apprenticed myself. And after a couple of years of doing that, and then I became one of the trip leaders and started taking other people out. From there, ultimately, I got involved with the Denali and got invited back to be a guide and have been doing it ever since. I think I've only missed, 2 years out of the last, that was when I was 26 years old, and now I'm in my 60s. So I've been climbing that mountain a lot now, 57 times. But another way you can get involved with it, if you have the desire, is to read the books. And I also have just recently come out with an ebook, a free ebook for people who want to learn how to climb at high altitudes. This is the summation of 40 years of my being in the industry, in the business of guiding at high altitude. And that can be obtained by going to sevenSummitSpecialist.com. It's a free download. It's got 40 years of my experience and all the skills that really are necessary for climbing high, big mountains. So that's another tool for people who are interested in getting involved with it.
Vern, I have to imagine that you've seen some of the most beautiful views that any human has ever seen. What sticks out to you from the things that you've gotten to, climb up and see that, most of us will never have the opportunity to see?
It's, for me, climbing above the clouds and having a sea of clouds below from looking down on that when there's a sunset taking place is probably the most dramatic, spectacular view available in the world. The mountain peaks sticking up through the sea of clouds. For me, that's it just brings my heart so much joy to be up there and experience nature at its finest.
And Vern, I also have to imagine, as you're climbing up and getting higher and higher, you're seeing things again that most people don't see, right, in a lifetime. But if you ever run across something, you're looking out and you're seeing something and you go, "What the heck is that?"
That's a great question. The biggest, I think the most dramatic things in the mountains are the ice falls. So the glaciers tumble down, and when they do, they crack into crevasses. But as they get steeper and steeper, then you have these giant masses of ice sticking up out of the glacier, sometimes the size of buildings. And when those topple, I tell you what, it gets your attention. It's like a building falling over. And I've seen that and experienced that several times. That turns into an ice avalanche and sometimes roars down the mountain, going for thousands of feet, maybe even miles. And to me, that's the most startling aspect of being in the mountains is a huge serac fall and avalanche.
So, like we say, you've climbed the 7 highest summits on the 7 continents. So it begs the question, which is the toughest? You would think, I think all of us would default to Everest, but is it? Is that the toughest?
I think you're absolutely correct. Due to the lack of oxygen, I mean, you're 5 miles up in the atmosphere. It's so thin up there. Just the oxygen deprivation alone is enough to flatten most people. It's challenging just because of that. There's more difficult routes, of course, but not quite into outer space like Everest is. So for me, out of my 10 summits, 3 times it's tried to kill me. And so I've got a lot of respect for being at high altitude, and definitely that's the toughest of just because of the altitude. Certainly there's others that are more remote and have worse weather, but the altitude's the number one thing that'll get you.
So, like I said, you actually set the record when you were 57 years old, but that's because you came back and had to reset the record. You had it, someone else got it, then you came back to get it. So it was when you heard somebody else did it a little bit quicker, were you like, no, I'm going to come back. I don't care what it is. I'm going to come back and get this record back?
Well, Chris, records are made to be broken, and I think there's a little bit of the competitor in all of us. So it's bound to be broken more times in the future, and hopefully one day I'll have the financing to go after and get it back. You know what I mean? So it's just one of those things that I think human nature always wants to do one better, and I'm no different than anybody else in that area.
Bob, one more for Vern?
Sure, I got a ton more, Chris, but let me give him one more. Vern, I'm thinking when you have lack of oxygen and altitude sickness, there's a lot of other things that can go wrong. Tell us maybe some of the more common injuries that you've had over the years, and perhaps one of the worst things that's happened to you physically.
Well, there are several, as you mentioned, Bob. I think frostbite, where I almost lost a toe, probably is pretty debilitating. If you're not going to be able to walk very well for the rest of your life. I was very fortunate. Went to one of the better doctors in Alaska, and I still have all 10 toes, so I'm happy about that. Pneumonia is something that I've run into several times on Everest, and that'll put you down forever. Altitude sickness, pulmonary edema, cerebral edema. I've experienced those, but been very fortunate. I've come away unscathed in the long term. So I'm very happy about that. One of the things I'd like to mention, Bob, is recently I've been involved with an organization known as TAPS. That's a Tragedy Assistance Program for Survivors. It's a military survivors who've during the mourning process, the grieving of their loved ones, have come together and in a support group, a network that tries to enable people to get back up on their feet. And just in the last 3 years, I've been able to do several climbs and treks with this excellent organization, and it brings out the teacher in me. I'm able to instruct people who are not mountaineers in how to deal with altitude, how to deal with the challenges of being cold and the challenges of the weather. And for me, TAPS is a great organization that I think most military families should be aware of. It's a great resource for survivors.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I was hoping you would talk about tonight, Vern, and especially for our listeners on the Armed Forces Radio Network, because they can go online to taps.org to get more information about what that wonderful organization is doing. So kudos to you for being involved and helping those folks out. That's great work, Vern.
Thank you very much. We just got back from Peru from doing a trek to Machu Picchu with TAPS. So it's an ongoing love to be up there with those people and help them get some self-confidence and back on their feet and know what they can do for themselves. It's a great revelation for me. I'm looking forward to doing some more.
So what's next for you, Vern? What's up next?
Next week, I head over to the Himalayas. I've got a trek to Everest Base Camp and a climb of a mountain named Island Peak. It's actually higher than Denali.
So let our listeners know, Vern, how can they stay up to date with all the things that you're doing, whether it's online or over social media?
I'm on Facebook as Vern.Tejas, Vern.Tejas on Facebook, and VernTejas.com is my website. And I look forward to meeting you guys on social media. It's wonderful. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Tumblr and Instagram. So anybody who wants to get in touch, please do. I'll answer all your questions. And hopefully you can get some information out of that free ebook at 7summitspecialist.com.
There you go. Vern, thank you so much for being a part of the show. It was very interesting talking to you. We hope you'll come back and do it again sometime. Love to, like Bob says, 1,000,000 questions for you. We'd love to have you back sometime.
Great. I look forward to it, gentlemen. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
take
Vern.
care, Vern.
All right.
Bob, you want to talk about a guy that, as you and I were talking prior to the show, a tough guy. He's climbed all 7 of those summits at least 10 times. Some, as he talked about Denali, he's done 57 times. An amazing athlete, an amazing story, and an amazing guy too. Kudos for him for the TAPS work that he's doing for those folks as well. So great stuff, Bob.
I'm almost speechless, Chris. When you're doing things that he's done, it's in a different, I hate to use the words, it's in a different stratosphere where his mind is at and what he can handle and what he's done in his life. But there is so much more we can get into. But any guy like this that it just needs to constantly challenge himself. Chris, when you're at the top of Mount Everest, I mean, where do you go from there? What do you ask yourself
right.
when you're at the top, Chris? So,
right.
But I just love to pick his mind, and that's where these guys, it's just a fascinating interest, and we got to talk to him soon again.
Yes, absolutely.
We've
got our next guest, Chad Brown, hanging on the line. We'll get to Chad after this quick station ID.
Hear your favorite NFL legends sharing their stories and insights every week right here on Thursday Night Tailgate with Chris Mascaro and Bob Lazari. Take it away, guys.
The door is locked. There's no way out.
And now back and making his 9th appearance with us on the Kyvan Foods guest line is Chad Brown. Let me remind you about Chad's background. He's from Pasadena, California, played his college ball at Colorado, where he was a 4-year starter, an All-Big 8 selection in his junior and senior seasons, and a second-team All-American his senior year. Chad's going to be inducted into Colorado's Athletic Hall of Fame on November the 9th. Kudos to Chad. He was a second-round draft pick in 1993 by the Pittsburgh Steelers, played linebacker in the NFL for an amazing 15 years, from 1993 to 2007, for the Steelers, Seahawks, and Patriots. In all, he played in 189 games, had 79 sacks, forced 17 fumbles, recovered 15, had 6 interceptions, and he scored 3 touchdowns. He won the Joe Green Performance Award while with the Steelers in 1993. He was named to the Seattle Seahawks 35th anniversary team. He's now a football analyst, and you've probably seen him on the Pac-12 network, Westwood One, ESPN, and doing a fantastic job, and we are honored he is back with us tonight here on Thursday Night Tailgate. Hey, Chad, Chris, and Bob, thanks for coming back on the show.
Hi, Chad.
Always happy to be on with you guys.
So, Chad, congratulations on the Colorado Athletic Hall of Fame induction coming up. Has to be a very exciting night for you coming in November.
It is. You know, when you are given that type of honor, obviously it's a reflective type of moment, and you can't help but look back at all the people who helped you get there. You know, no one gets into any Hall of Fame by themselves. So while it is a celebration for me to be in the Hall of Fame, you know, I really want to make it a celebration of those people who helped me get there, who inspired me, who, you know, picked me up when I was weak, who, you know, drove me, all those types of things to, you know, give back to those folks and let them know how important they were to the, you know, little bit of success I had.
So to that end, who are some of the people that you'd like to thank and that really, you know, sort of helped your career along, whether it was, you know, when you were a kid or through your time in college or in the NFL?
You know, I've just been one of those guys who was incredibly lucky with, you know, all my coaches my entire life. You know, to go to the University of Colorado when Bill McCartney was there. Obviously, you know, folks have probably seen the 30 for 30, the gospel according to Mac. To be around such a strong guy, such a forceful guy. When I showed up at the University of Colorado, the last thing I wanted was another dad. I already had a dad in my life. Turns out that was exactly what I needed. So, you know, to work backwards, I would start with Bill McCartney, go back to, you know, my high school coach, Jim Brownfield. You know, he is also in the NA Hall of Fame. He's in the California Coaches Hall of Fame, was an incredible coach in all different sports, and really inspired a tradition at John Muir High School. So, you know, with lots of scholarship athletes under his tutelage, not just in football, but in men's track and also in women's track. My Pop Warner coaches, my mother and father, heck, you know, my wife, you know, feeding me good food, giving me a soft home to come to. So the list is quite long. You know, you said the Hall of Fame induction ceremony is November 9th, so I still have some time to write out the speech and really list everybody down, but those are the names that come off the top of my head.
And Chad, I want to stick with, you know, your alma mater, Colorado, and your Buffaloes are 3-1 so far this season. Tough loss last week to Washington, but how do you feel about their chances this season in the Pac-12 South?
It's going to be tough. It's going to be a tough year. And obviously USC is looking good. They've got a great quarterback. They got UCLA this weekend out there in California. They've also got a great quarterback. So the thought that they could sneak up on people as they did last year, that's done. People know who the Buffs are. I think they believe them to be for real, and they're going to get people's best games now. The difference between them and Washington, between them and Oklahoma State in the bowl game was clear last year. And now Washington showed them again, you know, that there is a difference. You guys are playing pretty good ball, Colorado Buffaloes, but Washington is truly a top 5 college football team. Pac-12 Offensive Player of the Year at quarterback, a all-time returner with Pettis. They play a tremendous style of defense. They are stacked from top to bottom. So for the Buffs to find themselves back in the Pac-12 championship with what would be a likely rematch against Washington from last year's Pac-12 championship game, the Buffs have a ways to go. They look pretty good in the non-conference schedule, but starting off the conference schedule with Washington definitely showed it's going to be a tough hill to climb for the Colorado Buffaloes.
Bob, questions for Chad?
Great to speak with you as usual, Chad. And getting back to a little bit about the people that were responsible for your success, as far as players when you came into the league, that was an incredible collection of defensive players in Pittsburgh, Greg Lloyd, Kirkland, and Woodson, and we can go on and on, Kevin Green. If you had to pick anyone, Chad, as far as how who really introduced you how to be a pro as opposed to maybe taking you under the wing, who did you learn most about being a pro player?
Well, this year, I had a chance to do my 3rd coaching internship in the NFL. I've done it the last 3 seasons. during training camp. 2 years ago, Seattle Seahawks. Last year, Tennessee Titans. This year, I was with the New York Jets, and I wanted to do it with the Jets, not because of the Jets, but because I could work with Kevin Greene again. Obviously, Kevin and I were teammates with the Pittsburgh Steelers teams, and of the guys, being with Rod Woodson, being with Greg Lloyd, being with Carnell Lake, being with some of my University of Colorado teammates, Deion Figures, Joel Steed, I would say Kevin was the guy who I most modeled my game after, whose approach to the game, whose level of professionalism really struck me the most. Obviously, we were sharing a media room as linebackers together, so I was working closely with them. So it was very easy for me just to kind of look a chair or two over and look at, how is Kevin taking notes? How is Kevin studying film? When he's watching film, what is he looking at? When we go on the practice field, what is his mindset? What is his approach? So to be able to work with Kevin those first 3 years of my career were really instrumental. And beyond Kevin, that entire Pittsburgh Steelers organization, I honestly can say if I had not broken in the league with those guys, with that organization at that time, I don't think I would have been able to play 15 years, because that's where I learned how to be a pro, the physical mindset that it takes, the toughness that it takes, that blue-collar work ethic that I think anybody who comes to the Steeler organization inherits. Very special time to be a Steeler, and very lucky for me I was able to be a part of it, because that really informed the rest of my career.
And Chad, sticking with the Steelers, I want to get your opinion about the whole training camp thing with Le'Veon Bell, holdouts and things like that. And then seemingly the team has a little hangover coming into the season. I know it's a business, Chad. You know that as good as anyone, but can you ever see a situation where holding out is good for a team?
I think it may be good for a team from the perspective that it forces you to build up some depth. You're getting this other guy back, but while this guy is gone, let's get all these other guys some reps. Let's get them ready to play, because at some point, at the running back position, Le'Veon may get nicked up, and you need other guys that you can rely upon. So it really allows you to dial in and get those other guys ready to play at a high level, because you're going to need that at some point. It's very rare that, a player is able to complete all 16 games in a high manner. So the depth thing is always going to be important. And particularly now with the way offenses, with the way the Steelers like to use their backs, even if Le'Veon's not nicked up, because he's such an integral part of their running game and their passing game, they need to get him on the sideline and spell him sometimes. So that's how it can be beneficial to the team. Le'Veon's obviously off to a slow start, but I think he's got such a tremendous talent that he'll find a way to get things picked up here sooner than later.
And Chad, one of my buddies says he remembers your press conference when you left Pittsburgh and signed with the Seahawks. And he said you jokingly made the statement that you signed there because the sushi was so much better in Seattle, which I find hard to imagine when Pittsburgh has the Allegheny and Monongahela rivers right there. So that couldn't have been it. What did you decide?
The Sushi Gate story has obviously lived on and taken a life of its own since 1997, which is when that whole thing happened. The origin of that is the Seahawks knew that my agent, my wife, and I were getting hungry, and they said, we'll get you whatever food you want, but we'll only give it to you after you sign the deal. So they ordered from the best sushi restaurant in town and had that sushi delivered, and they kept it right outside the conference room they gave my agent and I and my wife to negotiate the contracts. They wouldn't give it to us until they signed the deal. So that's where the whole sushi topic came up. My wife made a joke, not realizing that it would still be living on, 20 years later now. Pittsburgh folks certainly have tremendous pride in their city. Who knew they had such pride in their sushi establishments? At this point, it's more funny than anything. I play along with it. Seattle certainly has great sushi. I think the sushi in Pittsburgh, which I have had over the years, has certainly elevated its game and gotten better. So yeah, no more, Pittsburgh sushi sucks. How about that? It's a fine sushi city.
Chad, just a couple more before we let you go. And speaking of the Steelers, I need your help feeling better about their defense. It seems like the Bears ran that same stretch play about 42 times last Sunday, and the Steelers couldn't stop it. And stopping the run, is typically a staple of the Steelers' defense, but we've seen them struggle over the last couple of years. Jay Ajayi had 200 yards last year. Isaiah Correll had 152. The Bears just put 220 on them. What's going on? Why can't they stop this play?
It's a difficult play to stop because there's so many places where the running back can break the play. So he's not really just running to one area. He's being patient with that offensive line. That offensive line is trying to stretch the defense to the sideline, hoping for a gap to open up, and then he can make that cut and get himself downhill. So you need all the players along the front to do their job. And what happens when teams start having success against you is you say, well, I'm going to do something special. I'm going to do something different. My teammate's struggling. Let me help him with his job. So once you start playing outside of your own responsibility, that's when those mistakes kind of happen. And that's why teams are able to run the same play over and over. It's because guys are trying to do things outside of the scope of their job. If everyone does their job, you'll typically be fine. But again, you're trying to help out this guy. You're guessing the play is going to break outside. When it breaks inside, you start making mistakes, and they start to snowball on you. I know Keith Butler, the defensive coordinator. I know he does a fantastic job. I know they're excited about T.J. Watt and his ability to get after the quarterback. But to really stop that play effectively, you need two good outside linebackers who can set the edge, not allow that thing to get stretched to the sideline. You need a nose guard who doesn't get pushed back, who allows those inside linebackers to flow downhill. You have those two components, it really gives you a chance to stop that play. Right now, they're not getting really high-level play outside of those two components on those plays.
Just had one more. The Steelers are 5-13 on the road against teams that are under 500 during Mike Tomlin's era, and we see it over and over again year after year. They sort of play down to the level of their competition. I mean, Mike Glennon 6-15 as a starting quarterback. 2 of those 6 wins have come against the Steelers. So, is there something to that? Is it a mindset? Help me understand what goes on that they continue to struggle against teams that are so far under 500.
The Mike Tomlin saying, I think we've all heard him say it if you follow Mike Tomlin long enough and the Steelers long enough, the standard is the standard. Which it should be the case and should be easy for teams and guys to understand, but it is inevitable in NFL football when it's such a high-pressure atmosphere, you can't help but look to take a break someplace, somewhere along the way, and you finish one game and you look at next week's opponent and you go, oh, they're not so good, they got a losing record, and then to your point, you play down to their level of play. You don't play to your standard, you play to their standard, and you let them hang around, you give them life. The difference in talent in the NFL is so thin that if you let any team hang around long enough, they can find a way to beat you. And you would hope that the Steelers would learn this lesson, but as you point out, the record's pretty significant, and it's been going on for years now. Mike Tomlin has got to find a way maybe to change up the routine to get these guys to understand that the standard is the standard. It doesn't dip when we play somebody who's not so good and then rise when we play somebody who is good. We play to our level all the time. Somehow that message is not being communicated and not being understood.
Chad, before we let you go, you're broadcasting now. Tell our listeners how they can listen to you and find you, whether it's online, on TV, or on social media.
Well, you can find me on Twitter at ChadBrown94. I'm always, taking pictures of games before I broadcast them, and obviously some insights into my life. And a lot of times, the majority of discussion is clearly going to be football. This week, I've got Ole Miss visiting Alabama for Compass Media. You can go to compassmedia.com and find a local station which will be airing that game. Next week, I have got Oregon State and USC for the Pac-12 network. So between Compass Media and Pac-12 network, that's where I'll be broadcasting for the remainder of the season. And then I heard your previous guest, Vern, has summited some pretty incredible mountains. I had the great experience this March to climb Mount Kilimanjaro with Chris Long, Howie Long. Yes, Howie Long's son, Chris Long, went up with UCLA head coach Jim Mora. Nate Boyer, the former Green Beret who had some time with the Seattle Seahawks. So very cool trip, raised lots of money for clean water and wells in Africa. And a really, life-changing experience, more than just climbing the mountain, but to see the ability of just something we take advantage of over here, turn on a faucet and water coming out, the ability to provide water to these villages and to these schools really was a life-changing experience for me and for the folks who got the water. Very happy I did that. And if folks are interested in supporting that, they can go to cleanwater.org and give money and donate to the wells for providing clean water in Africa.
Wow. Kudos to you guys for doing that. What a wonderful thing and what an amazing adventure. So hopefully the next time we have you on the show, we'll talk a little bit more about what that must have been like. But we can't thank you enough for taking time out of your night, Chad, to come back on the show. It's always a privilege for Bob and I to get to spend some time with you. So thank you for being a part of the show as often as you have.
Thanks,
it's always fun being on with you guys. I always appreciate it, and you guys have a good one. Take it easy.
All right. Take care, Chad. All the best to you and your family.
All right. See ya.
That is former Pro Bowl linebacker Chad Brown. Climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. So we get 2 mountain climbing stories tonight, Bob. Amazing stuff.
Yeah, and 2 guys that, there's 2 spotlights on the positive already there, Chris. But, yeah,
right?
Chad, we love him, had a great career, and is not just a good journalist, Chris. He's just a spectacular commentator. And, again, wherever he's working, I urge people to tune in because his insight is incredible. So, again, every time we learn a lot when we talk to Chad. Great guest.
Yeah, he is, and I look forward to listening to the Ole Miss Alabama game this weekend to check Chad out. But yeah, his talents are endless, and what a great player he was, and he does a fantastic job as a broadcaster as well. So we look forward to catching up with Chad again real soon. Before we get to our next guest, Greg Montgomery, I want to give a shout out to our friends over at the Gridiron Greats organization, folks. Please help support a wonderful cause that's taking care of guys who literally left so much of themselves out on the field. Remember, folks, these are the guys who played, way back when they still had to get off-season jobs to support themselves and their families. It's organizations like this one that was started by Mike Ditka. Again, the Gridiron Greats, who are trying to help the guys we all grew up watching and reading about. Please go to gridirongreats.org to see what you can do to get involved. All right, now back with us on the Kyvan Foods guest line, making his 4th appearance, is former Pro Bowl punter Greg Montgomery. Let me give you some background on Greg. He's from Morristown, New Jersey, which is about 20 miles northwest of Newark. Greg was a punter, and he started out playing his college ball at Penn State before transferring to Michigan State. His senior season, he was named All-American. He remains Michigan State's all-time leader in average yards per punt at 45.2 and in second in average yards per punt in a season at 47.8 in 1986. All 3 of his seasons there, his average yards per punt are in their top 10 all-time, and Greg was named to their all-time team as well. He was a 3rd-round pick in 1988, drafted by the Houston Oilers, and he played in the NFL from 88 to 1997 for the Oilers, Lions, and Ravens. He was named Special Teams Player of the Week during Week 7 in 1993, and he would go on to be selected to the Pro Bowl that season. Over the course of his career, Greg had 524 career punts, including 83 during his final season with the Ravens in 97, and he averaged 43.6 yards per kick, and we are honored he is back with us again tonight here on Thursday Night Tailgate. Hey, Greg, Chris, and Bob here. Thanks for coming back on the show.
Welcome back.
Hey, Chris and Bob. Great to talk to you guys again.
And so, Greg, I wanted to start our time with you tonight, and I know you and I were sort of communicating prior to the show, and you've spent some time recently at Alabama doing a kicking camp with Nick Saban. You were also talking about going back to your alma mater, Michigan State, to do the same. So talk about how all that went.
Well, it's going well. I've had a great relationship with Nick Saban. He was one of the main reasons why Jerry Glanville drafted me in the 3rd round back in 1988. He was our defensive coordinator at Michigan State, and he took the defensive backs job with the Oilers, and he convinced Jerry to draft me 72nd pick. So we've maintained a pretty great relationship over the years, and I come in and help him out with his punting and kicking camps every year at Alabama.
And, Greg, to that point, right, when you look at, the job that, that you did as a punter, right? Coming in and you're a third-round pick in the NFL draft. That's almost as rare as it gets. A punter getting drafted in the third round. Were you expecting to get drafted that high? Did anyone talk to you about that sort of thing, or did it come out of the blue to you?
Yeah, well, they definitely mentioned. I mean, the 49ers, Bill Walsh came in. They're mentioning taking me in the second round, and I was hoping to go in the third round, but I was really happy with that. And as you guys know, a lot of pressure comes with being drafted that high. I kind of struggled my rookie year, but then found my groove my second year and went on to have a pretty good career.
And Greg, going back to your time at Michigan State, you got to play for, as the head coach, George Perlis, a guy who's near and dear to my heart as a Steelers fan. He was a coach on the Steelers staff for most of the 70s and the first couple of years in the 80s. What was it like playing for George?
Oh, it was unbelievable. It's kind of funny. My dad played with George. My dad was a linebacker and quarterback at Michigan State when George was there. And I was just kind of reminiscent about some of the Georgisms, and he had some pretty good advice that he gave, and I wish I would have taken that advice more often. And there was that advice is nothing good happens after 12 o'clock at night.
There you go.
He says work hard, keep your mouth shut, and good things happen. And that's basically the moral of the story. I know you guys know that I've stumbled a little bit over my after playing football and went through some mental health issues, and I've found the strength to get to the other side and share my story a little bit and let kids know there's a proper way of doing things, and there's not the best way of doing things as well. So it's been an interesting ride for me.
Bob, questions for Greg?
Greg, it's great to speak with you again. And I looked at some of your days in New Jersey at Red Bank Regional, and that's down in Springsteen territory and all that. And I saw that Danny Stubbs was, I think he was a high school teammate of yours, if I'm not mistaken. He became an incredibly, very, very talented NFL player. What are your memories of back in those days, Greg?
That's interesting. Danny and I just got entered into the Red Bank Regional Sports Hall of Fame. I'll be going back to Jersey in October. That's a great honor. And we had some great times back then. Danny and I have always stayed in touch, and he went to the University of Miami. In fact, they offered me a scholarship to go to Miami when Danny was taking the trip down to Miami, and I decided to go to Penn State instead. But we've always stayed in touch, and we've had a lot of great times and a lot of great moments on the football field and great moments off the football field as well.
And Greg, these days, do you come across a lot of young people that either come up to you and ask you that I want to be an NFL punter, or I just want to be a good punter, or is that kind of the position that people morph into from playing other positions at the youth level now?
Well, with me, it was a back injury that forced me into the kicking and punting. But there's a lot of specialty camps out there now where kids are actually really training to become specialists, and whether it be long snappers or kickers, kickoff men, or punters, they're really starting to train specifically for that. And with my coaching and mentoring kids, I'm actually working with high school, college kids that specifically do that. But you're right. Back in the day, most of the time, you look at the Tom Tupas and all the other punters, they most likely were quarterbacks and defensive backs or running backs that made a transition at a later date. Most of them were quarterbacks and wide receivers, et cetera. But like I said, these days there's a lot of specialty training going on. So these kids are grabbing that position at an early age, and their parents are pushing them through a lot of camps and instruction, hopefully getting a scholarship. And the odds of going to the next level are not that great, but at least they get to experience some great work ethic and relationship building on the football field when it comes to being a punter and a kicker.
And Greg, you once said that you didn't think of yourself as a football player. You just try to improve the field position for the guys who play the game. Why didn't you consider yourself a football player?
Well, that was, I mean, I was just always trying to stay humble. I always understood that all the guys are out there banging heads and running around all practice and during the game, and they're putting all the work in. And, as a specialist, you want to get out there and just want to contribute the best you can. And that's what I did. I mean, I was a linebacker and a tight end, and most likely I wouldn't have played in the NFL with the skill set that I had at those positions. So it was a blessing in disguise. But I just always kind of alienated myself due to not being able to be on the team full time as a position of linebacker or tight end. But that was more of a respectful statement to the other players to make them understand that I respect the hard work that they put in, and I'm just a guy out there trying to change field position. It's a game of real estate, and that's basically where that came from.
And Greg, I want to get your thoughts on sort of both sides of the coin. When you think back over your career, is there a game that you enjoy thinking back on? Kind of still brings a smile to your face to this day. And on the opposite side, is there a game or a loss that still bothers you?
Well, the loss, I mean, I didn't have a great game in that Buffalo Bills loss that we when I was playing with the Houston Oilers, and that was unfortunate. And but those type of losses actually build character and teach you that you need to move through adversity and come back the next year and have a better year. I mean, it's unfortunate that we have some games that we don't perform as well, and then there's games that I can think back when I averaged 59 yards a kick. And also, had some big boots, 77 yards, 86 yards out there. But, most of those games, most of those experiences we had were really special. And, looking back on them, it's really nice to reconnect with the players when we get together for events. And, moving forward, working with some of the former players on some business ventures is interesting as well.
Bob, more for Greg?
And Greg, 3 times you led the league in punting average in the controlled conditions of the Astrodome. I just wanted you to compare what it's like punting inside to as opposed to going to a place outside like Denver in the mile-high air. Did you like getting outside a lot, or were you just really good, comfortable?
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead.
Definitely. I mean, actually, I had a better average outside than I did inside. I mean, the funny thing about punting in a dome, if you hit it good, it'll go. But if you don't, there's no airflow that'll hold the ball up. And so, it was nice that there was no fluctuation in the drop when it came to wind or rain or anything like that. But when I got outside, I really I had my best games up at Giant Stadium when the wind was blowing. It was a matter of really concentrating and getting your leg into the ball with proper technique. And usually you have great success when you really concentrate out there and go through the motion properly.
And as far as angling punts, Greg, when you're punting from maybe midfield to get that ball inside the opponent's 10, is that something you guys did a lot in practice? I mean, they can't allot a lot of time to it, or is that something you had to do a lot on your own also?
Yeah, it was a lot of specialty work when the guys were practicing. We're always going through situations and, practicing holding, practicing pooch kicks, practicing angle kicks. So that was a skill that I think's kind of gone by the wayside with the Aussie punt coming in now. It becomes a lot more effective to spin that ball backwards and let it bounce inside the 10. I mean, a lot of those guys have really developed that technique well, but Ray Guy and a lot of the other great punters, Sean Lendetta, used to be able to spin that ball inside the 10, but the margin for error wasn't as great, whereas now these kids are banging it up in the air and usually getting a fair catch out there.
And Greg, before we let you go, talk about what you're doing now.
Actually, I'm a brand consultant. In addition to coaching and mental health advocate, I'm a brand consultant with KPS Essentials, which is a unique performance-based organic skincare company here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And it was started by a rocket scientist and an oncology-certified esthetician, and it basically promotes hydration, volume, and collagen growth. And it's interesting. I've taken on a real holistic approach to my life. And transcending into the skincare business has been a really cool way to connect with some of the former players and really, give people their lives back. A lot of people out there have problems with psoriasis, contact dermatitis, cystic acne scars, et cetera, and when I used to be on some medications, I used to have complications with the medications with rashes on my face, and we've got a great product that has identified certain plant molecules that promote the hydration, nutrients, and energy that's needed for healthy cell function. And there's one of the things, guys, if I can just talk for a sec, one of the main things that I regret not doing as much of when I was playing football was the philanthropic aspect of my life. And I made the mistake of believing that it was all about me. And these days, all I'm really looking forward to do is give back. And with the hurricane situation at KPS Essentials, we're actually working with the Humane Society, and we're giving 50% of our proceeds benefiting animal rescue with the hurricane relief efforts. So that is that's a great component of the company that I'm working for right now. And it's kind of funny, through my business, I've been able to reconnect with Brad Leggett. And I don't know if you guys have ever met Brad Leggett. He was an offensive lineman for USC and the New Orleans Saints and Detroit Lions. And he's got a website called myelitenetwork.com. And they basically are connecting professional athletes with business opportunities, consulting and marketing, and basically monetizing relationships. And that's one of the main things I tell kids when I'm meeting them. Understand something, guys. Number one, you only get one chance at a first impression. But number two, you need to understand that every hand you shake is a potential customer. And we need to hold our head high and really represent our schools and our families in a positive manner. And what Brad's doing is he's really getting all the guys together and finding a way to connect. And the interesting thing is his girlfriend, Kelly O'Neill, is an esthetician, and that is somebody that gives facials and has a huge Hollywood celebrity clientele. And we've been working together with KPS Essentials to do some philanthropic work and, get products out to people that need it, in addition to raising funds for all the hurricane relief. As you guys know, I played with the Houston Oilers, and a lot of my friends are suffering down there, and they mentioned that the funny thing is the animals need the most help. So we're just doing our best to get some funds raised and raise some awareness, for athletes that have already gotten out of the game to connect at My Elite Network with Brad Leggett, and working hard with mental health advocacy and maintaining my brand consulting job with KPS Essentials.
Wow, that's really great stuff, Greg. Tell our listeners, how can they stay up to date with all the great things you're doing and follow you, whether it's online or if it's over social media?
Well, it's social media on Twitter. I'm at Zen Punter. That's ZenPunter. It's Gregory Montgomery at Facebook. I do have a mental health blog. It's bpwellness.blogspot.com. And also Zen Punter at blogspot.com is where I do some instruction online. If I just want to reemphasize, if anyone knows anybody out there that's having problems with psoriasis, contact dermatitis, and complications from medications, definitely reach out to us and purchase our Renew face cream. It's definitely going to help you with that. And number two, the fact is we're giving 50% of our proceeds at KPS Essentials to the animal rescue in September and October. And that website is KPS Essentials, ESSENTIALS.com. And then, of course, we can connect through Brad Leggett's website at myelitenetwork.com. And I look forward to hearing from people. And I really want to hopefully get back on again with you guys because I really appreciate our relationship.
Well, we appreciate you, Greg. Thanks for taking time out of your night to come on the show. We definitely would love to have you come back on again real soon. In between now and then, all the best to you and your family, my friend. It is great catching back up with you, Greg.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate you. God bless.
All right. Take care, Greg.
Take care.
That's former Pro Bowl punter Greg Montgomery. And again, a couple of those sites, kpsessentials.com, myelitenetwork.com. And Bob, I know animal rescue and the Humane Society is something that's very near and dear to your heart, as it is to my wife's heart. So some great work that they are doing, helping to do some great things for unbelievably so many animals that have been displaced down in the Houston area.
Yeah, it may sound like a cliche, Chris, but they need a voice, and guys like Greg understand that. It's a tragedy on every front, but again, there has to be a voice out there, and it's great that the word's getting out there, and there has been an incredible response to the whole Texas thing, and we'll just keep working on it.
All right, when Bob and I come back, we'll be turning on the Thursday Night Tailgate Spotlight on the Positive, hear which players are doing great things in their communities, and then we'll wrap up the show, and we'll do that on the other side of these words from our good friends at Kyvan Foods and the Salt Creek Golf Retreat.
This is Reggie Kelly, former Cincinnati Bengals and Atlanta Falcon tight end, and I'm the owner of Kyvan Foods. And if you enjoy delicious food, you're going to love my Kyvan products, which consist of our honey apple salsa, sweet barbecue sauce, and an array of seasonings. For store locations, online orders, and recipes, check out our website at www.kyvan82.com. That's KYVAN 82.com. One taste, and you'll appreciate the goodness.
If you're looking for a great place for your annual golf outing, a weekend golf getaway, or just a round of golf with your buddies, then Salt Creek Golf Retreat is just what you're looking for. Centrally located in Nashville, Indiana, just south of Indianapolis and west of Cincinnati. This challenging but fair 18-hole golf course appeals to all skill levels, and its scenic views of rolling hills and tree-lined fairways are sure to make golfing memories for years to come. Owned and operated by former Purdue and New York Giant fullback Randy Manier, Salt Creek Golf Retreat offers stay-and-play packages that include golf and a fully furnished 1- or 2-bedroom condo. After your round, be sure to stop by the 19th Hole Sports Bar and Restaurant for great food, fun, and drinks. Randy and his staff will treat you like family. For more information, log on to saltcreekgolf.com. That's saltcreekgolf.com. Or give them a call at 812-558-5944. Salt Creek Golf Retreat. Start making your golfing memories today.
Thursday Night Tailgate, where the spotlight is always on the positive. Tune in Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time to hear your favorite NFL legends, players, and coaches sharing their stories. Now back to Chris and Bob.
I wouldn't joke about anything else that happens here tonight.
And we're back here on Thursday Night Tailgate, and we're turning on our spotlight on the positive. Bob, who do you have for us this week?
I'm going to give a shout-out this week, Chris, to safety Don Carey of the Detroit Lions. I was reading up on him this week, Chris. He runs a nonprofit along with his wife called the Reach Foundation. And on the website, the aim of that organization is to provide students the opportunity of academic achievement and exposure to diverse arenas to ultimately be inspired to reach their maximum potential and become significant contributors to society, which is an incredibly great undertaking. And I thought some of the recent activities he was involved with, Chris, are tremendous. 2 weeks ago, Chris, he went to the Frederick Douglass Academy for Young Men. This is in downtown Detroit. And he actually supplied every student at that place with a new backpack to start out the new school year with, and it went over very good. I think he gave over, about 250 backpacks to all these young kids, and it went over great. He's also ran a football camp this past summer. That was in cooperation with Martin Luther King High School in Detroit. That involved over 250 public school students. Not only did some of his teammates join him, Chris, to go through drills with the kids and everything, but they also put a spin on education with it too, and they did a lot of hands-on activities that dealt with technology education like that. So this guy is very in touch with what needs to be done with young people, and he goes out of his way. So kudos to him and his wife and his foundation, and for these recent events. He also has a new book that's coming out October 15th, Chris. I would urge people to check it out. It's called It's Not Because I'm Better Than You, and it's got a lot of great stuff in it. So Don Carey, kudos this week.
Yeah, that's great stuff, Bob. And, Bob, I want to put the spotlight on the Pittsburgh Steelers and several of their rookies spending their off day on Tuesday visiting the Pittsburgh Children's Hospital. Rookies T.J. Watt, James Conner, Juju Smith-Schuster, Brian Allen, and Josh Dobbs all went and spent the afternoon visiting with the kids and their parents. And they played games with the kids, took pictures with the kids and their families, signed autographs, and just sort of hung out, to make the day fun for them, give them sort of a sense of normalcy. Brian Allen talked about how difficult it was for he and his wife when their child was born 2 months prematurely and had to spend extended time in the hospital. So he wanted to do what he could to support and brighten up the day for both the kids and their parents as well, because it's a very stressful time for the parents. James Conner, right, who played at Pitt, and he's been going to the Children's Hospital for years, giving back. One of the patients that he spent time with, Bob, was a young girl, 8 years old, has gone through 9 heart surgeries. So he spent some time with that young girl. So he said seeing the kids, their faces light up and get their minds off what they are going through is just priceless. So, Bob, I just wanted to spotlight those guys for making the day special for those kids and giving them something to look forward to, and also memories that those kids and those parents will cherish forever. So kudos to those guys, Bob.
That's great stuff, Chris. And again, to end the show with some positive stuff like that is it's always at the top of our priority list, and it makes the show all the more fun to end it like that. And thanks for keep doing what you're doing.
Absolutely. All right, folks, time for Bob and I to put a bow on this episode of Thursday Night Tailgate. Again, we want to send our thanks out to Gus Frerotte, Tony Collins, Vern Tejas, Chad Brown, and Greg Montgomery for joining us. And, Bob, as always, the biggest privilege of all, spending my evenings with you, my friend.
I appreciate it, Chris. A lot of fun tonight, very inspirational, and a lot of enjoyment out of that show tonight. And so tell me what we're going to do next week.
Next week we'll kick off the month of October with former Seahawks and Cowboys defensive back Ken Hamlin, the Hammer, will be back with us.
Yeah.
As will former Cardinals and Royals closer Mark Littell will share more of his stories and insights, on his career, plus the postseason that we've got coming up here with baseball. So look forward to catching up with Mark. Our good friend and former Chargers, Vikings, and Giants defensive back and TNT Hall of Famer Vincey Glenn will be here. And, Bob, as will Bears Hall of Fame linebacker Mike Singletary. Can't wait to talk to Mike and hear about his tremendous career. And, of course, Tony Collins will be back with our 5-star picks of the week. So we hope you'll come back and be a part of the show with us next week. It's going to be a big one, so we look forward to it. Want to remind everyone how you can follow us on social media. Please go to Facebook and check out our Facebook page, Thursday Night Tailgate. Give us a like. That's important to us. Plus, both Bob and I have our own Facebook pages as well. Please check out our website, ThursdayNightTailgate.com, to see who some of our future guests are going to be. Plus, you can stream or download any of our archive episodes for free on there. Plus, on Podbean, our great friends on Podbean. Can't thank them enough for featuring this show and their sports and recreation section, plus our golf show next on the tee in there. Can't thank them enough for their support. On Twitter, you can find me at CT Mascaro. Bob is at Bob_Lazari, and the show is at TNT Podcast. So check us out. Give us a follow on Facebook and on Twitter, and check out the show online at on our website, ThursdayNightTailgate.com. Bob, take us home, my friend.
Thanks, Chris. We'll talk next week. And thanks to our announcer, Joe LaGenusa, for the great job he does with our weekly intro and ads. And to James Brocato and all the guys from Painted Faces for our upcoming outro music. On behalf of myself and Chris, we thank everyone tonight for listening. We appreciate you the most. Until next week, everyone. Good night, Kevin. We miss you.